Welcome back to Question Everything, an equestrian podcast. I'm Veronica. Today's conversation is one that sits quietly underneath almost everything we do with horses, but we don't always name it directly. What does it mean to own a horse? And what does it mean to be in partnership with one? And how do those two ideas exist together? Legally, horses are considered property. That means we make decisions for them, where they live, where they eat, when they work, who handles them. They depend on us for nearly everything. And that creates a very real power imbalance. Not necessarily a negative one, but an important one to acknowledge. Because when one party in a relationship controls the resources, the environment, and the outcomes, that shapes the relationship, whether we intend it to or not. In human psychology, relationships are often explored through ideas like power, dependency, and agency. Research in relationship science suggests that healthy relationships tend to include a sense of safety, predictability, the ability to influence outcomes, and a level of mutual responsiveness. Now, horses are not humans, and we want to be careful not to project human emotions onto them. But they are learning beings. They respond to patterns, they form associations, they adjust their behavior based on consequences and environment. So even though the relationship is not equal in a human sense, it is still shaped by how we interact. Ownership versus partnership. What does partnership actually mean in a relationship where one side holds the control? Maybe it doesn't mean equality. Maybe it means something more like consideration within asymmetry. We still make the decisions, but how those decisions are experienced by the horse can vary. Do they feel predictable? Do they feel consistent? Do they allow the horse to understand what's happening and what leads to relief or reward? Or are they confusing, inconsistent, overwhelming? Because from a learning perspective, those differences matter. And the horse's experience. In equine behavior research, we often looked at indicators like behavioral responses, heart rate changes, stress-related measures like cortisol, willingness to engage or avoid. These aren't opinions. They're observable patterns. And they give us small windows into how the horse might be experiencing training and interaction. For example, a horse that is still and compliant may not necessarily be relaxed. Research has shown that physiological stress indicators can remain elevated even when movement stops. So, if we define partnership only by outward compliance, we might miss this part of the picture. Dependency and responsibility. Now, horses rely on us for everything, and that dependency brings responsibility. Not in a heavy or overwhelming way, but in a reflective one. Because when a being cannot leave, cannot choose their environment, and cannot advocate for themselves in human language, our awareness becomes part of their welfare. So let's return to the question. So maybe the question isn't, are we partners? Maybe the question is, what does partnership look like within a relationship where one side holds the power? Can partnership mean creating clarity instead of confusion? Offering consistency instead of unpredictability? Allowing the horse to understand and respond rather than simply react? Can we stay open to adjusting as we learn more? Let's take a moment for some human reflection, because this isn't just about horses. It's also about us. Because in human psychology, when we feel confident in what we know, it can be difficult to stay open to new perspectives. Sometimes we protect our identity as good horse people, and I'm using air quotes, by holding tightly to what we've always done. And that's human. But curiosity asks something different. It asks, what else might be true? What might I not be seeing yet? So this episode isn't about redefining horsemanship in one direction or another. It's just an invitation to notice, to consider the structure of the relationship we're in with our horses, and to stay curious about how our choices shape their experience. Because even within a system of ownership, there is still room for thoughtful partnership. If something in this episode gave you a new perspective or question to sit with, that's a good place to be. Keep observing, keep learning, and as always, question everything.